Yeah, it's Saturday. I got the hoodie on. It's cold in the morning still. Make sure my mic is on. It's now one of my nervous ticks. God bless you. God bless you. God bless you. It's Saturday. We're going to work and mix in a little bit of reflection while we get through our April challenge for, I think it's the 19th day of this month. God bless. God bless. Warning. This transmission will alter your emotional exit routes. Side effects include conviction that most of your reactions were just addictions to feeling seen, cold withdrawal from the high of being triggered, restlessness in the silence that used to feel like absence, but is actually your new access point. If you are feeling called out, good. You needed a firewall. Welcome to Raw for Epoch 2, day 109, the Response Rewire. We're still getting emotional. And today we talk about no emotional spillout. When triggered, stay still. Recode inward, don't react outward. We're going to trigger all the triggers. Your reaction isn't just a habit, it's a rehearsed evacuation of responsibility. That's right. You trigger yourself out of responsibility. Here's the concept overview and what we call, again, the response rewire. This isn't about learning to calm down. This is about recoding the part of you that's used to leaking power just to feel heard. We're not reacting less, we're reacting smarter. So here's the recalibration. Every outward reaction is a signal of inward misalignment. Emotional spill and vomiting is not strength. It is untrained overflow. Triggers aren't good or bad. They are invitations. Stillness isn't suppression. It's override. Reaction is instinct. Response is authorship. We're going to get into a visual metaphor. We call this the stolen passcode. Imagine, immerse, close your eyes if you must, and picture this. You log into a public terminal. You walk away thinking everything is fine, but somebody saw you type in your password. Now they can log in whenever they want because you leaked the code. That is what happens when you react emotionally. You're giving people full system access. Stillness is the lock screen. Stillness says, I don't give out credentials on demand. You understand? This is big. We talk about it. The I don't care movement, man. I've been considering that a lot. And I got some heat coming, boy. Ooh. Here's my personal perspective. I call this the finger on the trigger. And I got to preface this. If you haven't already learned, I'm not a neuroscience. I haven't studied lab data, at least not explicitly. I read about some. But I have studied myself. And let me tell you, that's quite the experience. And here's what's also true. The system doesn't lie, so here's what I've learned. I believe we've been socially programmed to believe that triggers only come from fear and that they're all negative, which in my opinion is poverty-based, low vibration. But what if I told you the highs are triggers too? Here's when I started to trace my own life, right? Work with me. Alcohol, fantasy football, Friday night poker, the 9 p.m. pour-up, even group texts and Sports Center. All those positive highs, they were also triggered states. And like any drug, I built up a tolerance. So what do we talk about? I kept reaching, I kept chasing until I went numb to the high. Why? It's because I didn't know I was addicted to the emotional experience itself, not just the habit. It is emotional. We just lose sight of it. That's when it hit me. Every emotion is a trigger. Love is a trigger. Joy is a trigger. Euphoria is a trigger. And rage. Yeah. Same frequency, just flipped polarity. So I asked this question. Why do we only pause when the pain hits? Why not pause when joy hits too? And then once I realized this, I changed the whole game because I rewired the whole game. Instead of reacting automatically, I started holding the moment like a loaded weapon. Trigger. Visualize it, right? You're being triggered. It doesn't mean squeeze. It means put your finger on it. You still choose what happened next. You don't have to squeeze. So now when a negative trigger hits, not all the time, but I'm like 93.5%. Instead of yelling, storming, crashing out, I pause. I feel, I witness, and then I ask myself, what if this was just the love frequency trying to alert me I'm off path? Do you understand what I'm saying to you? Here's one thing I learned. Nobody told me you could meditate with hate in your heart, like hate in your heart while you meditate. That you could argue with God in silence. I haven't read that anywhere. That you could sit with disgust and still find clarity. But once I realized this, I understood that's where the rewiring lives. So you don't have to fix every trigger. There's nothing wrong with you when you rage. You don't have to fear the high. You just have to stay present long enough to code a new pattern. So what does that mean now? 93.5, maybe 94.63% of the time, I don't scream and yell with my wife. I don't ghost my kids. I don't drown in my own doubt. I keep my finger on it because it is a possibility. It's there, but I choose silence. I don't react. I respond with silence most of the time. I stay sealed because here's what I know for sure. All emotion is a search for love, and the loudest emotions are usually the ones that feel furthest from it. Does that not make sense? So I don't rush anymore. I don't flee or fight. I just hold like a sniper. You got to see yourself like a sniper. I'm always aiming. I'm locked in one priority at a time, and I just hold. Triggers up, finger steady, system locked, override in progress. Reflection is big. You know, I've deviated somewhat from reflection through the course of April because I believe that this was, I didn't believe, I scheduled this to be the challenge month for April. But I want to get back to fear-based consciousness and love-based consciousness and why I essentially really just highlight that as a response mechanism. If we talked about all week, we've been talking about fear is the polarity of love. So when we're triggered, it's natural. The trigger towards fear, there's many derivatives, right? There's many derivatives. The rage, the frustration, the anger, all those things. What I'm saying about the triggers, what I'm saying about being a sniper, what I'm saying about putting my finger on it, is that if I'm just constantly conscious about reacting to my negative triggers and always squeezing, part of the beauty of this culture around I don't care and I don't give a you know what is we get hyped when somebody says don't give them your power, don't give them your authority, but yet even fronting like we're not caring is definitely a relinquish of our power. It's okay to care. We're gonna get and we're gonna feel the negative connotations of life. It is necessary and required. Why do I stress the polarity? How would you know love if you didn't know fear? I said this countless times. It's been a while. Hate is the protector of love. And all it means is that if somebody can trigger you deep enough where you want to squeeze on a negative emotion, it's because something about that experience wants to push you towards love. That's all it is. Especially, I use my family a lot. 25 years, and I've been married since '08, so that's like 17 years. It'll be 17 years in August. Man, there's like, come on, I don't got to tell you what that's like. But every time I trigger towards a rage scenario, it's only because I want to be on the love scenario. Who wants to be in a relationship with somebody that they close the door with and seal their home with and constantly be triggered towards stress and anger and friction without progress? Like, look, one of the things we have to understand too is if you're in any relationship and that person doesn't trigger you towards frustration and question you about where you're at and hold you accountable, the relationship is not real. The people you are most closest to should constantly be calling you out. Now, it shouldn't be all the time. You want to get a little pat on the back, a little bit of love and a hug and a kiss every now and again from the people you love the most, but they also got to challenge you. If they're not challenging you, it's not real. So in that way, if you don't feel triggered to sometimes say, oh, I just hate you right now, it's not real. Because I love you so much that I hate you so much, because it's the same thing. It's just that sometimes because I love you so much, you push me towards a lot of frustration. So now let's remove the relationship to other people and the relationship to ourselves, our environments. If you're feeling like I hate my job right now, it's because you want to love what you do. So it's identifying, we're on this end of the spectrum. We really want to get here. But if you're always focusing in on the pain that comes with it, the anger, the rage, and the crash out, subconsciously, you've built that reactive system. So you got to stop squeezing the trigger. Stop being so emotionally reactive. You just like pop, 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 pop. Everywhere you go, you're blowing your load. Sorry if that sounds a little bit vulgar, but understand what I'm saying here. And it's not like we're all in this system mode of we can't overthink everything. We gotta. Sometimes the reaction is responsive in that we're constantly repeating it so much. That's how our mind and our consciousness believes we're supposed to respond. If you stop and keep your finger on the trigger, you can see what is happening when I'm triggered this way. This is why also it's important to just kind of say fear-based consciousness, love-based consciousness. You're going to tell me there's a lot of different emotions, but it all drives back to fear. And if I can understand when I'm triggered in that way, you know what it feels like. You feel it inside of your chest. It's a big pit and a big ball and a big knot in your chest. When it pops up, don't squeeze. Stop. Just stop and watch what's triggering you, because anything that is not worth it won't trigger you that deeply. Does that not make sense? If you really didn't care, you couldn't trigger me. That's why I cut people off and I can ignore things real easy. I'm looking like, who? What? Hey, you don't get my energy. Yeah, cool. Go ahead. Peace. That goes. That part. That's the easy part. But that's also, the consciously we don't focus, we don't worry because it's not that often. It's the things we want really bad. It's the things we want to love. It is, I want to go work out, but you get scared because it hurts and you want to be. I did leg day yesterday. I know how it feels. I woke up this morning, the lower half of let's just say I'm 185 pounds. When I go to sleep, I'm 190 pounds when I fill myself up. Today I woke up, I was about 170 from the waist down. Massively heavy. It's a reminder. I got to feel this way, and I have to understand to go through these things to remember why I love it. All these triggered emotions that we want to label, and that's another thing. It's not bad. Why does everything have to be bad? Why do we have to judge so harshly and condemn and pretend in front like and be this pretentious group of people like we're so perfect? You need it. The triggers are trying to alert you to something. And it's likely, very likely trying to, based on my experience, that it's trying to push you towards love. even through the pain. Pain can be love. If we can create a comfort of discomfort, I can sit and understand that sometimes I have to sacrifice part of who I am and what I'm becoming in order to maximize the relationships around me. Why? If I want to grow in my career, if I want to blow up the channel, sometimes it's going to be, I'm going to want to rage. Sometimes I want to rip the mic right off the side of my table. Sometimes I'm scripted. I'm like, yo, I just can't take this anymore. I don't want to write another word. Why? Because I love it so much. But if I just, and I pull my lights off and I pull my whole setup out and I walk away, what does that do? And then scale it out. If I didn't decide to go for my run, if I didn't decide to lift the weight, if I didn't decide to pray, if I didn't decide to meditate, if I didn't decide to challenge God, how could God challenge me? Why are we so uncomfortable about that? I was also, we talk about reflection. One of the most powerful things in my journaling experience recently over the last week was that I had this realization for me as I continue to work through my relationship with creating my own heaven. And I talk a lot about no one's coming to save you. Do you believe that you cross over into eternal life and that there's no more work? Do you not believe that heaven has a hierarchy? Like if we talked about that, this is text. I don't believe necessarily the book per se, but I think the metaphors are important. If the ultimate evil, the devil, fell from heaven and was one of God's closest angels, what do you think goes on up there? You don't think there's work? You don't think there's hierarchy? What if the only way, or what if your reflection in heaven, because I think we all go to heaven, is just the highest level of this realm and reality you've reached through consciousness? And that there's even a seat at the table in heaven. And the only way to get through that is to drive it towards the best possible love version of you, which the only way to get through that is to go through all the hate, all the pain, all the aggression, all the rage, all the crash out. How else could you be trusted? What relationships are you in where you haven't seen somebody? That's when you really know. Yeah, I got you. I got your back. I would never, until a situation hits. And then that person is tested. And then you can know, all right, I can go through battles with this person. Until then, it's theory. And it's word salad. And then the relationships, again, that you build that feel that you want to devote that much emotion to, it's a trigger to tell you, yo, what you really want is you want the best possible situation. But you got to fight through it. You got to fight through it. Okay. Reflect. How has your week been going? Do you think about your hierarchy? Do you think about when you present yourself into the eternal afterworld? Do you even think and believe in that anymore? I don't know. Where are you going to sit? I want to sit at the table. How do I get there? I'm just going to keep fighting. I might be triggered in heaven. Imagine that. You don't think that they politic up there? These are the things I think about. How could we, and one of the things I said was, I do believe, and I wrote this down, that the greatest thing heaven could offer us is that we're devoid of the egregious, like if it's eternal life, like you can't kill me in heaven, but you might be able to get kicked out somehow. And I don't think you get kicked out. It's just maybe you go lower in realms. What if there's levels to heaven, right? And what if you get like the poverty level of heaven? You think you just get fed grapes and you sit on a tourniquet? Is it not a tourniquet? A hammock? The fuck was I going there? But you think you just chilling up there and there's no like, is that you just that's what you're waiting for? And do you want that? You want heaven as a handout? I'm just asking questions. I know. I'm out of my mind. I'd rather be out of my mind in my own heaven than to be triggered by emotional hell. You understand? All right, let's go into the black book. Feeling blessed. I'm feeling blessed. I hope you're feeling blessed. 4:20 a.m. on a Saturday. Emotion. This is the black book. Emotional reactions are system leaks. This isn't emotional regulation. This is emotional authorship, right? We don't want to just baseline demean it and just like be reactive to non-triggered, excuse me, outputs. We want to be conscious about how we author our possibilities. And in that way, you never want to limit yourself. You might start responding to emotional triggers in a positive way, but you can always iterate, right? That's another thing. You have one positive outcome, you iterate, oh, that was good, I did it this way, and I want to stack that and stack that and stack that. That's why I believe so strongly in rooting into the infinite. We're finite, but there's infinite ways you could deal with the appreciation of gratitude and love. That's why we use all the derivatives. If we can use all the derivatives of fear and all these stress and overwhelm and pain and anxiety, well, there's being gracious, right? Grateful, joyous, ambitious. There's so many more. Like love is said in so many ways. We gotta iterate and stack that way. Okay, let me get into the black book and stay diligent here. The first entry: triggers are neurological shortcuts trained by repetition. Every outburst, retreat, or shutdown you've repeated has become a neural reflex. The more you do it, the stronger it becomes. Eventually, your system doesn't ask, it just executes. You want to know what's crazy? If you're in a dark spot with your significant other, I use my wife a lot because 25 years to do it to you, and I work so hard on making sure that we don't get into that darkness, right? Don't argue. Watch how crazy that feels. It's like waking up earlier when you don't wake up on time. You'll stun the other person, which is good. They won't believe it right away. Like when you respond in a different way and you give it the positive, yo, I can do it, love derived, you got to stack that too. But the point is, if you don't pay attention to your triggers, you miss out on the fact that you're not even realizing it. It is your reflex. And it's always going to be a reflex. You just got to build new reflexes. Here's a second entry in the black book. Reactions are not expression, they are overflow. When you go off, you're not telling the truth. You're leaking tension. That is not authenticity, it is unprocessed residue. That is massively important. When you just squeeze the trigger and you default to fear-derived, fear-based, poverty-driven mindset consciousness, it's unprocessed residue. You haven't authored yourself towards what you're really looking for, which is the love-based outcome. There isn't a person in the world who wants to stay triggered in a fear-derived way. You can't tell me there is. Who wants to live there? Third entry in the black book. Stillness. Stillness. It's not cheesy. It is a nervous system override. Holding silence in the moment of trigger isn't denial. It isn't weakness. It's recalibration. It teaches your nervous system. Not every emotion needs airtime. Not every insult deserves a download. Not every button needs a press. That's another thing. You believe because you feel it, you got to express it. Why? Who told you that? Not every insult needs a download. All right, somebody says something. Who is that person? Is it worth even allowing yourself to process that? Are you kidding me? Not every button needs a press. Oh, I'm triggered. Oh, I squeeze. Doesn't have to be that way. Here's the fourth entry. Rewriting requires intentional replacement, not resistance. The only way to stop a trigger reaction is to insert a new protocol. How about you breathe? How about you step out? How about you script the response? Don't just stop the leak, upgrade the pipe. We're going to get into consequences. The power of reflection through remembrance is understanding, why would I want to keep repeating scenarios that don't give me the outcome I'm looking for? So part of reflection on this lovely Saturday, how many times this week have you been triggered? And how many times did you walk away like, man, I wish I didn't do that? Well, how many more times are you going to walk away like, man, I wish I didn't do that? At what point do you not? I wrote this down yesterday too, what I was journaling. Remorseful reflection. And this is how I keep a level of humility, not just for lip service. It's important to stay humble. It's important that when you're grinding towards a lot of love and you start to have these great experiences with yourself and you upgrade who you are, that you kind of bust your own balloon a bit. Not because you don't deserve to be high all the time, but you gotta understand why you want to love so much. You gotta go back into the fear. So remorseful reflection for me is, and I wrote a script about this. I'm actually going to turn this into a monologue, and I think it's really important. But I was during my run yesterday, I lost my breath, not because the hill was steep, but because I just had a moment of remembrance and reflection on something that happened like in the 7th grade. I told you about. It goes deep. And it was not, we talk about a lot of times what happened to us. Oh, this happened to me. I went through this tragedy. I went through this, I had to triumph through all this, yeah. But what about what you have done? You keep telling me how you're triggered. What about when you trigger something? And so I had this moment where I remembered I did something that was terrible. I won't go into detail here because I don't want to give away the episode. But imagine that I did something to somebody when I was really young that they could still be thinking about 30 years later. Who knows the impact of what I did and how I had on. It's not that crazy. I don't want to make it seem like, but the hope, it doesn't take a lot. A push, a shove, words that are deep and painful. You walk away because you're the one inflicting it. You don't quite recall that because it didn't happen to you. It happened as you. But here's the reality about remorseful reflection. I don't want to be that person. I don't want to be that person. But the significance is what drove me towards that trigger, what drove me towards behaving that way and acting that way can come up in different ways. And if I don't have remorseful reflection to script out how I really want to respond, like, next time this pops up, I don't want to do that. Why? I don't want to have to be, you don't feel the pain? You don't feel sorrow? That's how I help avoid not being who I used to be. Sometimes, I talked about heaven and the hierarchy. I do wonder, like, have I done already so much that I won't, maybe there's, infinite levels. I might be at the middle level and never higher because of, there's just some things I just can't get back. And I have to live with that. That's part of what keeps me humble and grounded, to realize that, I'm so far from perfect. And that person that drove me towards imperfection, it didn't go anywhere. It's still me. And there's a reality too, through reflection, that you realize some of the things you did it because it felt good. It felt good in the moment. You might chalk it up as the devil and evil and temptation. It's all those things, but you still did it. And so the only way for me is not to suppress and ignore it. Like, I'm not going to front like, that didn't happen. That's not who I was. That is still who I am because it's still in me. And so I sit with it. I sit with it and I say, damn, I have remorse for that. I talk to myself like, when these things pop up, we can't react that way. And I don't just tell myself, you can't. I give myself an alternate option. That is why we talk about scripting. That is why we say, come to presence and breathe. You want to use your 5% of consciousness. Come to consciousness when you're triggered to say, you're up. Look what's happening. I don't want to do. How many more times are you going to walk away to say, man, I regret doing that? And then we think that it doesn't translate into how we live. I go back to the standard. From the minute you hit snooze for an hour, you snooze on the rest of the day. So you snooze on your triggers. You snooze on your career. You snooze on your dreams, your aspirations, your goals, your mind, your body, your spirit. All these things are not coincidentally disjointed. So reflection allows you to script how you want to respond. If you want to look out into the future, how do I want to be in the future? We have the paradox of life, the relativity of time. We're in the present based on the past and what we hope for in the future. Well, I can treat the future like the past, the way I reflect to say, if this happens again, I can prepare. I can script based on what I already know. So when it happens here, this is now how I want to do it. So when I create more future and I reflect back into the past, I don't have too much to be remorseful for. How much longer are you going to do things how much more time are you going to waste? That's the biggest thing, right? Is that not the biggest regret? That you come back and you're like, man, I wasted another year. Yo, for me, it's already 2026. Why is that significant? I started this journey going live on January 1st. To me, the year's over. And the year is over because time happens that fast, and I already can see everything I'm going to be doing throughout the course of the year. It's scripted. Why? I don't want no more remorseful moments that I can control. You really don't want nobody taking energy? Don't give up your energy. Don't give up that is also power. Before we go into the consequences, I was reading something about, I think it's a toad. There's a toad somewhere deep in the forest that they go through dry droughts. And the significance is when the water comes, the toad soaks up all the water. It's like a bear in hibernation, right? The toad can sense, yo, it's about to get dry for a long time. So it goes into hibernation, it hides under the ground and finds some shelter. And it does everything it can to not release any energy, to the point of it only breathes just enough to breathe. And then it senses, it can smell, taste, and feel when the rain's about to come down. And as soon as it hits, it basically jumps into the puddle. And guess what it finds there? Other toads, and it has a big orgy. Forgive me. Don't understand what I'm trying to say. It gets invigorated and inspired by the possibility of life, because when it knows when it rains, it gets new energy. It gets new energy from the elements of life. It gets the water, it gets the food, and then other toads jump in there. That's how they also wind up procreating. That's why I referenced the orgy. But what I'm talking about is the orgy of life. Not little, don't get immature, okay? But it's the inspiration of, yo, I'm not going to give up my energy when things are really hard, when it's dry. If it doesn't deserve my time, my energy, I'm not giving it. And in the minute I see life, the minute I see love, I jump in the puddle and I have a big, grand old time. You don't think that's scripted? It knows enough. It's experience. It's wisdom. I know how many times I've gone dry. I know what to do. Sometimes you're triggered. You got to tuck in. You could know I'm like a sniper. I got all the camouflage on. I'm waiting. I only squeeze when it's worth it. And if you ain't worth it, you don't get the time. There's consequences. You thinking about the toad in the puddle? It was in me since I read it yesterday. It's just been in me. I couldn't wait to use it. I'm going to replay this and wonder if it came out right. Here's consequences of inaction. If you don't rewire your response, you'll confuse reaction for presence. You'll hand control to the loudest energy in the room. How about this? You'll let people rent space in your nervous system for free. Gratis. Somebody's just living in there. You'll keep creating emotional fires just so you can feel the heat of your own identity. You'll never learn the joy of keeping peace when you could have dropped war. Here's the worst part. Here's the worst part. You'll look back at the mess and realize you built it. Not with intention, but with unchecked reaction. Again. Here's how to take ownership, because that hurt me to say that out loud. Ask yourself this. Ooh. Identify your trigger pattern. That's step one, taking ownership. Where does your response override your intelligence? Ooh. You want to have pride? Have pride for how intelligent you are to know that if you were really being intelligent about the situation, you wouldn't respond this way. I always go back to, too, we love giving advice. Awfully hard to implement it ourselves. Complainers will tell you stop complaining while they're complaining to you. Energy vampires will tell you not to accept anybody draining you for energy while they're taking your energy. Broke people will tell you about broke people while they're living broke. Where's the intelligence in that? But we're talking about taking ownership. Where does your response override your intelligence? Interruptions, criticism, silence. Find it, name it, prepare for it. Then you want to build a stillness response. You might want to script your override phrase. Something like this. This doesn't require energy. I stay sealed. Peace is my firewall. Say it, breathe. Don't move. The third thing you want to do is practice trigger rehearsals. Don't wait for the next fight. It's already too late. Mentally rehearse staying ahead. Create micro freeze moments in your day. Late text, disrespect, that eye roll, no response, just breathe, let them log out. No response, just breathe, let them log out. It'll pass. My mother-in-law says this. It's something that stuck with me, right? This too shall pass. Very simple phrase that I say a lot sometimes in my head. This too shall pass. This too shall pass. And the more you don't respond, the more, I'm telling you, the more liberated you will feel. Who's with me at 4:37 on a Saturday? Ooh, 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 ooh. It's time. It's time for our phone tap. You know it's our challenge. You got the call. Now move like it is recorded. This is ARR Audit Remix Re-Record Banca Bodega Certified and Sealed. Here's your audit. Start by auditing your last emotional spill. For example, you didn't just raise your voice. You gave away system control to a moment that didn't deserve it. Then you want to remix. Interrupt the trigger by introducing invisible strength. For example, say nothing. Step back. Let silence be your statement. It's a very popular option. It's called walk away. Let that person sit and marinate in that. Re-record. Create a new emotional protocol. For example, when the heat rises, I script my system. I don't shoot. I reroute. That's not suppression. That's authorship. Feelings. Nothing more than feelings. My beautiful people. A trigger is just an invitation, and you don't have to RSVP. Ooh. So own the system or let your emotions turn every room into a war zone you never even meant to enter. You either run the system or the system runs you. Change your mind, change your life. I am who I say I am. Do you and stay rich. Don't let them trigger you.